Welcome everyone to What the Force, and welcome to a discussion of the lead up to The Rise of Skywalker. And today we're going to be covering both Vader Immortal Episode 3 within the context of finishing out the game and Jedi Fallen Order. So we're talking about video games, which is really exceptional. And with me to talk about this is Chelsea, who's been on the show before to talk about Vader Immortal and Reverse Anadala. Hi, Chelsea.
Hi, happy to be here.
Welcome back. Just as a reminder, especially if you're avoiding the internet until you are able to see The Rise of Skywalker, if you want to catch all of our episodes, make sure to subscribe on your podcatcher app of choice, or subscribe to us, like us on YouTube. It just helps you make sure to keep up to date with all of our content, including The Mandalorian show and all of our regular episodes and bonus episodes when I get around to doing those things, as well as there's going to be lots of content coming out for after The Rise of Skywalker when it comes out. And next week, we have an amazing sequel trilogy, rest of the music that we can talk about thus far, including some Dark Union that we found.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so come back next week to listen in on that.
No, I want to know now. Dang it.
It's related to Tristan and Isolde.
What?
Yeah, we found it. Yeah, so come back.
Okay, I'm just so excited.
What else do we talk about? We talk about Paige and Rose, and we talk about Holdo, and we talk about Luke's journey through musical themes.
Oh my gosh.
It's really good. Yeah, and it's a perfect, prime you up for The Rise of Skywalker. It's the week of the release, so just avoid the internet, but come out to the show. All right, Chelsea, we have Vader Immortal Episode 3, which was released on...
was 3 days ago?
Yeah, November 21st, 2019. Yeah. And we have been following it along, especially from a story perspective, because it's been very, very interesting and ties into the theory of Reverse Anadala, where, they're telling us certain things that are going to lead into the storytelling of the sequel trilogy. Additionally, that iterative storytelling ring theory, that everything is connected and it's slowly working through the problems of the universe in the storytelling if you were to view these in chronological order. Really, really cool.
I have a quote about this, actually.
Oh,
they did a developer interview, about episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a quote from it. "We always work with Lucasfilm's story, like the story group. It's part of the greatest Star Wars story. It's canonical." That's it. They said it's part of the greatest Star Wars story.
It's saying it's one story and everything is interconnected. And
in the same interview, they described that it had been in development for the better part of 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you said that, it's literally what the developers said too. It's an important part to understand the greatest Star Wars story. They don't say part of a series of stories, or they say the greatest Star Wars story. So
what are the key things that we have seen in the previous chapters that are really, really important to highlight? We know that Vader is seeking continuously a way to bring Padme back.
Yes.
Additionally, we have our main character that is the descendant of a long line of powerful, we assume, Force wielders that were, the keepers, the guardians of this particular planet, the Corvaxes, Lady and Lord Corvax, and you are a descendant. That is who you're playing. You're playing somebody of powerful Force blood and who is a legacy person from this line. And you are a smuggler.
Yeah, who despite apart from your knowledge, you never had knowledge of this bloodline. Without that knowledge, you would have just been a smuggler. Mm-hmm. So that's
it's really a direct parallel to Ben Solo and his journey into the sequel trilogy. He is from a long line, or this powerful line of Force users. He had no knowledge of it until really, things were revealed to him, and then, he had to flirt with the dark side a lot, which is literally through the course of episode 1 and 2, you end up getting trained by Vader.
Yeah, the influence of Darth Vader pulls you toward your destiny.
Yep. Yep.
An interesting perspective. I wonder why we're getting this perspective before the Rise of Skywalker. The ultimate
Yeah, when we were first talking about this and like when we were doing our Reverse Anadala episode, we didn't think that this would come out before the Rise of Skywalker, but it did. Oh. So it's important.
Right. It's interesting that it was in development for 4 years, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh wait, let's get this out. Like
we didn't like a timeline. Like it was weird.
Well, yeah, I don't know that for sure, but like
they didn't tell us there was going to be a timeline other than like one day they suddenly dropped episode 2 and it was like, oh, and it's live now, and we're like, what? And that's what we recorded on it.
Man, and then that episode took us so much by surprise because we had made all these like assumptions about like the story.
Yeah,
we had made all these parallels that may or may not have held true throughout the whole story, and like, did they hold true throughout the rest of the tale?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we kind of called everything that would happen. I would say, except for we weren't sure if the planet would end up starting to heal. But spoiler, it totally did.
It's so interesting because we were trying to come up with a good ending for it because it didn't seem like there was one. But then like the ending that happened, I was like, oh, that's the only ending that could have happened. That's perfect. Like you use the influence of your ancestors and your great blue magical sword that you got from your magical bloodline. And you use that to release the power, the energy back into the universe that had been used by an evil dark wizard. And it will eventually go on to heal this planet again. Like it's the perfect ending.
And it ties very much to especially George Lucas's view of the Force from the get-go, which is that there is no creation or destruction, only transformation. And it, like the fact that you destroying the Bright Star actually creates rebirth is really, 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 really interesting.
Right. That's the part we couldn't come up with on our own.
No.
But they came up with it. So
I was really surprised that destroying the Bright Star was the answer. The priestess is literally like, so you have to release all the energy.
You're like, well, I didn't think it was going to be through like, but then you think about like what maybe that means. Like maybe you do need to have a good rebirthing once in a while, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like destruction actually does cause rebirth when we talk about, say, like forest fires. Okay, so episode 3 starts and you're like, how am I supposed to do this? Because you literally left me off and you're like, you do have an army. And you're like, what army? And she reminds you of the Corvax troops, basically.
The marching horde.
The marching horde, which is
and they're actually down in the necropolis of your family. Yeah, the marching horde is a good name, isn't it?
Yep. It is such a name, and like it reminds me a lot of how originally in some of the art design for the original Star Wars, George wanted stormtroopers to be skeletal, right? Stormtroopers specifically were supposed to be this version of undead army. And that's why their masks look almost like skeleton-like. It's covered in the Magic of Myth book by Mary Henderson, which is like now my Bible.
Yes. Yeah, I love that book so much.
But it just reminds you, like, even the Horde need a rebirth. Even they need, a redemption. And, it feels very much like Lord of the Rings with the Ghost Army. It feels there's some sort of mythological, string that they're pulling on with this. And it feels like this is maybe leaning into a Stormtrooper rebellion, potentially as, a foreshadow to that you have an army that will follow you.
Or did you expect anything with droids to happen in the Rise of Skywalker in general? Like,
Yeah, I mean, maybe as sort of like
Maybe
a
both at once, or like
yeah,
maybe
like
it's foreshadowing both of those at once or something.
yeah, something like that. Like it could mean that because the Clone Wars itself, both droids and clone troopers are victims of it. And
Yes, yes. Oh,
that's important to acknowledge. And as like a huge droid, like Liberation Front card carrying member, droids have rights and they are sentient, and it's important that they're sentient. It tells us a lot about the universe itself. And so yeah, it could mean kind of it could mean something. I don't know. I think that
it's the stormtroopers.
I think it's the stormtroopers.
Okay.
I don't know that
Enough about,
JJ
yeah.
is that big of a droid fan.
He's not into droid rights. Yeah. I kind of get that same feeling too. I think if we had to focus on anything, I would rather be focusing on the stormtroopers, like maybe regaining their humanity. That would be more like that. I think that might touch an audience maybe a little bit more than.
There's something powerful about taking off the helmet and seeing the face underneath and seeing all these individual humans. I just don't know that as much as I would like it to be different and people actually cared about droids and their sentiency and like their rights, and that this universe is really weird that it treats sentient creatures as toasters. I just don't know that there's going to be time for that story. We got a little bit of that in Solo, but to me, that's just telling us that we might get a droid. We might get a droid story in a couple of years about why restraining bolts exist from the past.
Oh my gosh, I just remembered about restraining bolts. That's so horrible.
Yes.
Like Luke Skywalker himself, the great hero, was just like casually like, yeah, you got one of those on you, huh?
Yes. And like
least-
they've been bringing it up more and more. So maybe it's something that will play into the Rise of Skywalker. Like we heard about it in Solo. We got it in Last Shot. We got, the iDroid story in Legends of Luke Skywalker. Like it's happened multiple times. So it means it's important and it means it's something on the creator's minds. But I don't know if it's that important to put into the Rise of Skywalker.
Well, they do have the droid maker in the story, right? The droid creator, Babu Frick.
Babu Frick. That's
my love.
Maybe there's something about see-through. We totally got off topic. I'm so sorry. But quickly, yes, Babu Frick is a droid programmer, and that is very, very important. That is basically like the power of the Force over droids. And I think that could mean that he might be giving C-3PO the way to control droids, and then they help fight.
Yeah, so it would be kind of like this.
It would be very similar to what happens in Last Shot. There's tons of foreshadowing for that. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Okay. You talked me around. I was like, I don't know if there's time, but I'd love to see it.
Can it all happen at once? Like,
can't we have everything? Reverse Anadella, Han Lives, Sheev Demption, Dark Union. Like, can't we have it all? And Droid / Stormtrooper Rebellion.
And all the time Reylo's making out. It's going to be the greatest movie ever.
Is there time, Chelsea? I don't know. My bingo card is so weird.
Mine is too. My several bingo cards I made.
All right, let's get back to Vader Immortal.
We're never going to get through this.
So you go and you end up having a brief conversation with the priestess. She's like, we got to go and see your army. You go down, you see your army in the necropolis. The army is there, and you use your legacy saber that you have been gifted by your bloodline to basically activate the army and say, I am the one in control. See here. And you do these swipes, and actually people were pointing out that the movements that you do to basically confirm your bloodline is tied to the tree of life.
Oh, I'm so glad that you had something on that, because I was like, I know there's something about this, but I'm not getting anything.
There was some great posts about it. I didn't have a chance to really dig into it, but there's something about the movements that ties to sacred geometry, basically.
That makes a lot of sense. Like one of them is a triangle, and then the other is like kind of a zigzag.
Yeah, the zigzag is the movement and flow of energy through the body / life. It ties to Hinduism.
Oh,
And chakras.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then the very last one, and then the triangle one is a tribute to the 3 favors, apparently. And then
so there's another triangle. Just if you're following me on Twitter, I have a giant tweet thread to do with triangles and how triangles keep on coming up because it has to do with the middle path, the third way, the understanding of the mask of God. And it's like, out beyond right and wrong, there is a field. It is finding the self within the binary, and that self, that thing that exists beyond the binaries of time is transcendence. Sorry. This is a side note. Triangles are important. Okay.
The last position is the position of command.
Oh, right. Yes.
Where the gesture goes straight up into the air, just like Luke on the cover of A New Hope or Rey on that one poster of The Last Jedi, just the heroic pose.
Yep, exactly. And we've seen Luke in that pose. We've seen Rey in that pose. Have we seen Anakin in that pose? I don't know if we have.
I don't remember. That would be so funny. I feel like maybe Darth Vader. He's like, no. I don't know. No, I think I've only ever seen those 2 and maybe parodies of other things, because that's a famous poster.
Yeah, very true. So it's almost like who owns the legacy saber in a way. And you grant your power to the priestess, the Mustafarian priestess, to command the armies in your stead, which is really interesting. And you basically touch your saber to her staff, and she shares in your power. I feel like that's really significant.
I think it is too.
What do you think it means?
Well, I mean,
it's okay. You're wearing a tinfoil tiara. I can see it.
Do we ever take it off?
No.
No, we do not. This is a way of life. I mean, a priestess. If we're still going with the parallels to Ben Solo, a priestess who also wants to stop. Yeah, it could be the sharing power, just like Anakin shared the power between the 2 engines in the pod race. At the tail end of the pod race, he won only because he was able to share the energy between the 2 engines. You are only if you can not selfishly keep the energy and instead give it to others. That's the way. That is the way.
That is the way. This is the way.
This is the way.
We've been watching a lot of The Mandalorian. Okay, so yes, I think it is sharing your masculine energy with the feminine.
Exactly.
Right? I think that that's a parallel to that. It's also a parallel to the concept that, you, Ben Solo, cannot do this alone.
You have to share your ancestors' legacy, your name, your birthright. I don't know. There's a lot going on.
Well, in old command, in the Roman army and the English army and in knights, you would have this basically sigil that you would carry around with you that was a command token. And if you gave it to somebody else, it was like you were giving that other person your name and your power.
Right.
And to me, if we see reverse Anadella literally happen, that's literally what happened. This was the metaphor for that. That Anakin shared his power with Padme, relinquishing the other part of himself to her.
Yeah, it would be one of several metaphors that seem like that throughout the story. Yeah,
it would be a repetition of that similar structure, but we won't know until The Rise of
Yeah.
Skywalker comes out and we actually know what the story is.
Exactly.
Officially. All right. Then you take the craft upstairs. You have to open up the hangar door, i.e. letting in the Horde into Vader's castle, making it easier for them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, so there's a Mustafarian that travels around with you, and yeah, your droid companion constantly comments on how this Mustafarian that's helping you out has goggles as you're flying up. I'm like, is this a Maz thing?
Huh. I don't know. I didn't think about anything about the goggles.
It's just it was a weird thing to call out. And Star Wars is not a monk, like it's not above saying like directly that sort of thing.
She was also criticizing him on his driving.
Yes. So there was some, and like, what do you wear those goggles for and stuff like that. So we could literally see that happen, like that play out happen in The Rise of Skywalker.
Huh.
Somebody commenting on Maz's goggles and she's like driving something and like crashes into something. Or
did anyone have goggles in the, I don't know.
I think Maz is the only one with goggles. Like
okay,
glasses. Like, I don't know. That's just a guess. It's a wild speculation. You show up, you open up the hangar, your ship is there. Your ship, I'd never noticed this before, looks like R2-D2 from the side because it has the same blue lines on the fins.
Huh. I didn't notice that. Interesting.
I have a picture if you want to see.
It's also called the Windfall.
The Windfall, yeah. So look at it's the R2-D2 of ships.
Oh my gosh, it is. That's so, oh yeah.
Like, look, the blue lines and then the white and how it looks like the front of his chassis.
Yeah. Huh. I see it. Huh. I wonder why.
I don't know. There's so many things, like we might actually have to come back and be like, so this is what happened from a foreshadowing and like map it out.
Yeah. There's got to be a lot of stuff that we just can't possibly catch.
But like the fact that the ship looks like R2-D2 from the outside, like as much as like a Hot Wheels R2-D2 car, that's what it looks like. Like it's recognizable to me that this is R2-D2's front panel.
Yeah, I don't think that they would like do that on accident. It's like it would be embarrassing if they did that on accident.
Yeah.
At this point, like you have this great battle and like all the stormtroopers and the people Horde. Are fighting. Yeah, the Horde are fighting each other with the Mustafarians, and a lot of crazy stuff is happening all at once. And everything they said in quotation marks felt like something that could be said inside The Rise of Skywalker to me. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, we're there. We're like in the final arc of the story. This feels like. So this is the speech that the priestess gives you as you're going up the elevator to go finally confront Vader. She says, there are moments when even the fate of a galaxy can pivot on the actions of an individual. Remember, the bright star represents the life energy of an entire world. A life longs to be free. If the moment presents... Yeah, so... that like a life longs to be free. That's Palpatine trying to strangle life. Mm-hmm. And life longs to be free, and you must free the energy so that it can go freely. Like it was crazy to read that Power of Myth book, or the myth. What was
the magic of myth? Yeah,
the magic of myth book, because there's a part in it that says, like word for word, Palpatine strangles the energy of the universe, and the thing is, you need to release the energy to make it flow freely again. That's perfectly what that was only written about the original trilogy. That wasn't talking about the sequel trilogy yet. So he will be doing, like, Luke and Han had to go through their old character journey. And I feel like Palpatine, who is a static and unlearning and unchanging creature, he will be doing the same thing. He has to be doing the same thing. He can't learn or grow. He needs to come to some sort of resolution that allows him to actually see that the control that he seeks is just delaying the inevitable
release of energy into the universe. And that's where like I always get confused when people are like, Palpatine wants to live forever, and I'm like, well, it's beyond that. He just wants to control and prevent the system of flow, right? The
Yes.
flow of energy from functioning the way that it should, because he thinks there is no greater I don't know, will or purpose to the world. He's a nihilist. He thinks that things don't have a purpose. So if he controls everything, then he's not actually doing anything that's against what the universe should happen, right?
When Vader was telling him about his plan to try to reunite with Padme through building a castle on Mustafar, Palpatine's response to it was, you're a great Sith because you can never let anything go, like stranglehold. Oh, and also Vader strangleholds people.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just get this. I only get this now.
Yeah. And he also says, oh, good, because if you learn anything, your power is my power.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's not about living forever. I think that that's just a sub thing that happens by not letting go and not, knowing that you're one and the same with the whole. It is more about controlling, like not relinquishing control to the galaxy, not allowing yourself to let go. You want to be the manifest destiny, not have manifest destiny thrust upon you, and understanding your place in all of that. He refuses his place in all of that.
Exactly. In the same way that Jedi are Force ghosts and they don't fear death because they are one with the Force, he almost doesn't fear death because he's like the opposite of that, I feel like. In a lot of ways, like he has such a stranglehold on the power of the universe that nothing can shake him. Like if you read some of the novels about him, he just seems like he knows what's going to happen before it happens, and he isn't afraid of dying, and it's very, very spooky.
And the thing is, like, he can't see love.
Right.
And there's an interesting moment that we'll get to in a moment with the final confrontation that is just really, really awesome. So you go up the elevator. The priestess is like, you must confront him, destroy the bright star. That's the only way to release the energies and have things flow again and the rebirth to happen. And you walk up after the priestess basically disappears because she's sucked into the Aeon engine from an energy perspective, and you, being of that bloodline, are also in danger. So there's high stakes.
Yeah, that she disappears to show you, like, this is going to happen to everybody, like to show you what's going to happen, so you're invested.
Yes, there is actual stakes involved. And you see Vader kneeling before the weird cube, the Padme cube, which is yellow in color. What did you think of this moment? So Vader basically says, Padme's talking about how all I need is your love. So, Anakin, all I need is your love. And he replies, Padme, you will be mine once again.
I have all of this written out.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
If you need it.
I do not have it.
Okay, I have everything for this. So the Padme part, there's actually murmurs as you walk up to him that aren't part of that. And one of them that I heard clearly was he found it spoken by Darth Vader. He, like, the Darth Vader voice says this, and it says he found his pain could be harnessed by the dark side. I'm not sure why it says that as you're walking up to it. So there's all and it's like very quiet. So at the same time, you're hearing kind of other murmurs going on as well. I'm not sure what the significance of that is, and I wonder if there are other ones. I wish I could play the game. So she says, Anakin, all I want is your love. And then right after that, she says, I'm afraid. Like, she says that line, like that's, and then he says, Padme, you will be mine again. If the energies of this world are not enough, there are countless others. So it's like,
all right.
It's so,
what's going on with that?
It's so frustrating because, like, after the Vader comics, you kind of root for him to, like, have finally learned his lesson about Padme,
Yeah.
But he's still, it's just a selfish possessiveness to him. Like,
Yeah.
you will be mine again. Oh my gosh, buddy.
Yeah, no, it was really, really interesting because we almost got a very humanistic moment in episode 1 when he actually took off the mask and he just wanted to connect with her and you know
Oh yeah.
be with her. And I would say that through the struggles that he has had in the Vader Immortal series, he makes the same mistake again. It's literally him making the same mistake again.
In last episode, when we were talking about this, we were like, he is a dead boy and he can't learn anything because he's a ghost right now.
Yeah.
And he has to reconnect with Luke in order to be able to like
see things differently.
Yes, he has to. Yeah. It's only through Luke that he can grow again. So it's so sad to see him do this over and over again. So he and I saw the picture image of Padme this time, and I was like, oh no, like
she's actually there.
Made me so emotional.
What do you think is going on with this box?
I don't know.
Like the box is super weird. It looks like a mirror type thing in some, but you can't really see it clearly in episode 1. But it's definitely like a weird rhombus box.
It must be some sort of like force artifact or something, or
yeah.
But maybe it's just like his memories of her or something. It's not really explained. I don't think it needs to be explained.
No, I mean, so with the Aeon engine hooked up with like cords to this box, we actually start to see a figure in blue light start to form, and the figure in Padme's voice. And I don't know if they actually got Natalie Portman to come back and do these voice, but it certainly sounds like her. And she says, no, don't do this. Don't go this way.
I think that she's just, I think it's all from Revenge of the Sith. It's stuff that I recognized from the other movies, so I don't think any original, unless maybe they took old recordings of her lines from, it could be a lot of stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, they keep saying lines that I feel like apply to Ben Solo in The Rise of Skywalker. Like, so he turns to you and he says, so like, no matter you've arrived too late, your life energy is ebbing away. And then he says, where your ancestor failed, I will succeed. Like,
all right.
Okay. And then she starts coming out of the pyramid shape as the blue ghost. And a blue ghost, kind of like a force ghost, almost like that same kind of vibe, I feel like. And then again, another line that I feel like it could apply to Ben Solo in The Rise of Skywalker. Look upon the engine, don't you see? Your ancestors' destiny is fulfilled. I was like, reverse Anadala?
Yeah, like so we hear, basically, grandfather, I will finish what you started, and then we hear, this is actually happening. Yeah.
I will finish what you started. Where your ancestor failed, I will succeed. Where your ancestor failed, you will succeed. Your ancestor's destiny is fulfilled. Like they've been saying these kinds of phrases through all of Vader Immortal. He says the Aeon engine recognizes you. Your bloodline connects you to its power. So again, you as a Skywalker, I mean, as a Corvax descendant, are connected to the energies of the universe in like a mystical way because you are a descendant
chosen
of
one.
You are a chosen one.
Yeah.
You were mentioned in the Force, the chosen one prophecy.
And in the Phantom Menace, they describe them like Anakin as a virgins in the Force. You are the Force.
Exactly.
So how does this relate to the chosen one prophecy? Oh, you mentioned just.
Oh, sorry. Well, both. I mean, it's my interpretation of the prophecy because it's, of course, it could possibly be something else, but both Ben and Leia are mentioned in the Chosen One prophecy. She who was born to darkness will give birth to darkness.
Yeah.
When it's saying like your bloodline connects you to its power, you are a chosen one as well. Like it's all it's the Skywalkers. It's Anakin especially. He already was, but there's something about Leia and Ben as well, in my opinion. Yeah. So, and then Padme says, stop. And then she sounds like she's in actual pain. As as she is solidifying her blue body, coming out, like all of the energy of all of Mustafar is coming up into this engine, and the engine is trying to pull Padme out of this yellow box. It's trying to like make her take form so she can be with Vader again. As this is happening, Vader lifts you up and starts to force choke you. And as he does that, Padme says, stop now, come back, I love you. That line from. So as he's doing that exact
it's the repetition of the Revenge of the Sith moment with Padme and Vader.
Exactly, like the great wound in Star Wars when Anakin failed to show compassionate love to his wife. He repeats the same gesture. He is choking you. He can't get past this, must have a stranglehold on life. He must control it. You see her body almost solidify, but you don't see it completely solidify because you yourself are falling unconscious. So as you fall unconscious, you come back to consciousness almost immediately and you see that Padme is gone. So Vader's, again, he does this sin of choking, strangleholding someone, that same parallel to him doing that to his wife.
And losing Padme again.
And he loses her again. So and then
he then goes into proceeding to just say he's going to destroy everything, just like he does after he loses Padme. Basically all of that pain coming forth, because he hasn't learned. He is literally like if you were to refer to the state that Vader is in as hell, like he repeats the mistakes that he has made continuously.
Right. He says, she was almost within reach. Now she is lost to me again. It's still, again, like a possession thing. And you fight him some more, and you're, of course, losing because no one can win against Darth Vader. Except for Luke. Right when he's going to give you the killing blow, time stops, right?
Yeah. Because of the Black Bishop.
Right.
Lord Corvax.
So this is very interesting. They put you in a position where you can get a really good look at the Eon engine. Did you look at that closely at all?
Yeah, I did. So it has it looks like an egg.
Right.
It has the, circular part with the, bright star inside of it. And inside of the bright star, the negative space looks like half of a yin yang, the dark part of a yin yang, the yin part of the yang. Yin yang.
So it took me a little while to like really look at this, but there's something really particular about that dark interior yin yang. It looks like it's stapled to the bright star. Like this particular darkness does not complete the dark star. You know how like there's a theme in Star Wars where dark and light come together to make a perfect whole,
Yeah.
This is very specifically, it's stapled to it, and it looks like Frankenstein's monster kind of staples.
Yeah.
So this is a reference to Frankenstein's monster. Also
is also Vader.
Well, like it's like his yearning to bring a loved one back from the dead,
yes.
like that story, and also like this is not the true way. You can't force the dark and the light to come together. Like you can't violently staple it to it and think that you will get the power of the universe that way. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So just I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's the design. Like they designed that particularly to show you that cannot be the way. That is wrong. That is it should feel wrong. It's horrible.
Yeah, it looks Frankenstein-y, certainly. And also I noticed like all of the different it's almost like phalanges that are like holding it in place look like a shattered mirror. Like they're different sizes and different things like that. So it's like this is a broken version of the truth.
It's not reflecting what should be, or
yes.
Very beautiful design. Very thoughtful. And so you're told by Lord Corvax, he's like, okay, this is the moment. I froze time for you. you're gonna die if you don't do this. Please destroy the bright star so that we can release that energy back into the universe. And what's interesting is there's apparently a bit that happens if you do not do it and you wait for a second. He will say another line. He will continue talking and tell you more information. I watched 40 different versions of people playing this.
The face I'm making is like, Chelsea, your dedication.
Well, no, it was easy. I just like went down each and every one and just scrolled through to that part. It didn't take very long, but like, none of them were patient and waited, except for one
article, right?
Yes, one of the reviews said that this was a thing, and so I was looking for it. I really wanted to see it. None of the people that and I looked down until it was like in other languages. I could not find anyone except for one guy who had he saw Vader frozen and he couldn't resist. He punched toward Vader with the lightsaber, and apparently he punched his own TV and he hurt his hand. And so as he's like, wait, oh, my hand hurts, he waited long enough for Lord Corvax to continue talking. And unfortunately, he had recovered at that point and he thrust the sword into the Bright Star. And so he interrupted what he was saying. So I just got the tiniest tidbit of what he was going to say. And he said, the Black Bishop goes on to say this sentence, the Bright Star would never restore Vader's love. And then he says, the only, and then it cuts out. Anyway.
Oh my goodness. You know, I very much feel like I've talked about this a lot, but I feel crazy sometimes. Like, I just feel like, is this reality? Like, and I have to question myself when we say stuff and then it happens.
I know.
And we're like, oh, cool. On a side note, like, I watched the Mandalorian episode and I called like 90% of it and I still loved it. So
I did the same thing, and I was still moderately worried about it. Moderately to heavily worried about it. I was like, I know my hero tropes, and I know he's the hero, so I have 100% faith in him. But Mando, my love, please. Mando, I can't deal with this.
I mean, you know, just like his own personal theme, he goes on a journey and he makes some wrong choices occasionally. And then, you know, we hear the triumphant music in the end that is capped with the Celeste, you know, music, like the Celeste theme. So that represents the child.
Don't you think it's so important that we're getting that kind of narrative right now? Like, that I have sinned, and yet this is me flying off into the clouds happily with my family at the end. Like, yes. I was so emotional. I'm like, could The Rise of Skywalker have an unhappier ending than The Mandalorian episode 3?
No.
Can it have an unhappier ending than Vader Immortal?
Nope.
Can it have an unhappier ending than Jedi Fallen Order, which we will talk about
in a few moments? Okay, but let's finish off Vader Immortal. We get distracted because we love talking to each other so much. But okay, so then we have this like beautiful animated cutscene where we have this moment where Lord Corvax is thanking you for what you've done, and that the Bright Star's energy has been released and is becoming one with the planet again, which is gorgeous and amazing and just perfect. And you get to see like this painting version of Lady Corvax next to him.
Reunited
at last. You also get to see and be told that the planet is now entering a period of rebirth, and it will be slow, but it will happen.
Yeah. What's interesting, you said that like fire renews in forests, and that's exactly the imagery you get.
You get the trees growing after the lava cools, and it's just, you know, and like some of the most fertile locations in Earth are actually volcanic islands. right? So once the lava cools, it's actually the most fertile land that anything can grow. And so any seed of life that grows from that ends up just springing forth and covering once it's cooled.
Oh my gosh, you're right. That's so wonderful. I can't wait to see
So
Mustafar.
I really do think we're going to get a revived Mustafar in The Rise of Skywalker. I feel like the people that played Vader Immortal will just like freak out in the theater. I think we're going to get like just, and even some people have pointed out, like even Rogue One, like the lava didn't look as lava-y. Like people were commenting on that. Like they were like, it didn't feel as lava-y. So this has been planned all the way along.
Wait a minute. Because this happens before Rogue One.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
It's part of the greatest Star Wars story. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I feel really good to have gotten this puzzle piece that like people complained about that during Rogue One. Like Mustafar doesn't seem as lava-y.
I really didn't I didn't see that, but that's exactly what we were promised from this that came out after that. That's so wonderful.
But this is the iterative, non-linear storytelling. I have to like almost draw people pictures sometimes so that they know where things are happening. And then they're like, wow, that's really interesting. It is asking a lot of the audience to have this non-linear storytelling the way that it is. And we're about to talk about another non-linear story. But when you get it, you're like, wow, that was really satisfying. It's like that missing puzzle piece that you could never find the place for.
Yes.
When you put it in, you're like, wow, that picture is so cool.
That's why it's really frustrating when people like complain about details that may not make sense now. It's okay to complain, but like maybe a lot of those details I can think of explanations for them. Like anyway, not to bring up other subjects, but
and then you end up awakening after you've passed out because of all the crazy stuff that's happened, and you're stumbling and you see the ship arrive. Where did Vader go? Who knows? Who knows where he went for a while? You stumble. Your droid shows up with the ship, drags you onto the ship, and you start to escape the atmosphere.
And this is my favorite quote.
I know, it's so good. Please do say it.
Oh, sorry. Do you have it?
No, please say it. It's so good. It is like this is the key.
Your droid says, the whole family is back together again.
What family?
I know. It's just
literally you and your droid on this ship. What are you talking about?
The whole family's back together again. Back on the Windfall. Sorry. Let me rephrase that in the Rise of Skywalker way. The whole family's back together again. Back on the beloved smuggler ship, the Millennium Falcon.
Yes.
Okay. The whole family's back together again. Back on the ship, as it should be. And then you put the totem that you got into your magical family sword. That's still important to you, that you can still keep, because your family will always be. Oh my gosh, your family will always be with you. And okay, and then it makes a magical star chart, a treasure map, and
to the next adventure.
Yeah.
It's so good. It is so good.
I'm tearing up.
I know you are. It's so cute. But it's good because it's like, you know what? These adventures are just beginning with this new world, right? And some important stuff from a metatextual or a meta perspective that I'm paying attention to is something was fixed about the planet, i.e. the analogy for the galaxy. The concentration of energy that was in the bright star, which I'm now thinking is actually more of a Palpatine situation because of the control over the planet. And
right.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to think about that too much, but something was fixed about what was wrong, and because of that, the galaxy / the Force / the planet was able to be rejuvenated and reborn, and that's totally what we're going to see in the Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, it's not going to have a worse ending than that.
No, I'm actually surprised at how happy all of the endings that we have seen in all of the stories that we have seen recently have been.
What's interesting is I think that they're all very happy, but they don't tell the full story. They tell like one segment of the happiness that the characters in The Rise of Skywalker will have, if that makes sense. I feel like in this one, there's no love. There's no like romantic love, like kissing, going off into the sunset in this one, but there are in some of the other endings, you know? So it's like if you combine all the endings together and you're like, the complete picture of happiness a little bit.
Yeah. And again, it's about what Rey deserves in the end. You know, she deserves to have all the different forms of love for her.
She deserves everything that she wants, I think. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very satisfied with the Vader Immortal like ending, with the whole story. If I ever get a chance, I will suffer through the Oculus experience. Not that, sorry, the VR experience. I know I get motion sick, so I will try my darndest to actually play through it and then stare at the walls. Video game creators,
please.
A humble request from What the Force / myself, Marie Claire. Can I have a special key to unlock our archaeology mode?
Let me wander.
I just want to wander around and look at all of the beautiful art that you've put on the walls. I just want to experience the story. I want to have a free pass to be like, look, wave my hand, and like everybody just falls at my feet or dies the way that they're supposed to or whatever. I'm just not very good at video games, but I still want to experience what you have going on, and I want to hear the story as it's being told. I just don't have the physical capabilities to be good at video games. I'm trying my darndest with Jedi Fallen Order, and I'll admit my caveats as we get into this, but yeah.
What's interesting is somebody once like described video games as like the only form of art that punishes you for not having a certain skill to be able to actually experience it. Like you can't go on until you've proven yourself or something.
Proven myself worthy. Jedi Fallen Order. By the time this comes out, I hope to have been completed, but I'm not quite there yet. Like I just got a game controller for it. I'm playing it on PC, so yeah. But any last thoughts before we get into Jedi Fallen Order? No. Thank you for creating such a wonderful story and all of the hard work that the Vader Immortal team and ILM did for this. I look forward to whatever you want to do next. I think it'll be really cool.
It was very touching to me. Thank you very much.
You cried at the last part. So yes. Yes, exactly.
I didn't even play this game. I don't have this VR thing. I wish I could have.
All right, let's talk about Jedi Fallen Order. And I was very excited about this game pretty much from the moment I saw the concept art.
Really? You were into the yeah. You were talking to me about this.
Yes. I was freaking out about how amazing the concept art, and I assume I have missed stuff because I'm about halfway through the game now, but I had to finish it to like talk about the story, so I watched some walkthroughs, and I know Chelsea, you watched some walkthroughs too, and we can talk about the story a little bit more in detail. But there's something about video gaming the Force that has been a challenge for LucasArts in the past. So LucasArts is the video game arm of Lucasfilm, and they basically work with publisher or video game creators like EA, and with EA, who also worked with Marie Claire needs to look up who did it.
BioWare?
No, not this one.
Sorry. Ignore that. Just trying to guess.
It's Respawn.
Okay. Oh, so, that's right.
Yeah. So EA recently bought Respawn, and Respawn was specifically working on this game. And there's something that like the Force Unleashed had this problem. Even parts of KOTOR had this problem. And it's something actually that the story group has expressed frustration with in the past, which is how the video gaming of the Force has changed how certain people almost view that you must train to use the Force. And they've literally spent multiple years and millions upon millions and millions upon millions to try to remind people that that's not actually how the Force works. Like multiple games, like so Vader Immortal. You can just use the Force right away. It's not you unlock that part of your brain and it works. Clone Wars, children can use the Force almost from the get-go.
Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda can use the Force, right? I appreciated how they did the Force in this game and how different it was from, say, other versions of the Force that I've seen in other video games. Essentially, you are a survivor from the Jedi Purge, Order 66. Your name is Cal Kestis, and you were a Padawan under the Jedi Order, and you were serving during the Clone Wars on basically a Star Destroyer on a Jedi, command ship. And your master, during the course of Order 66, realizes what's happening because of the sense in the Force, and you escape together. You learn this throughout the course of the game, basically by which you are dealing with your own trauma from the massive betrayal that you experienced in Order 66, and then being hunted and trying to find your place in the galaxy, by which you could no longer be who you truly are. There's this amazing conversation right off the bat with your friend that you basically are junking, you're stripping ships at the beginning, and your friend is like, so why don't you go and find something that's you're truly meant to do, and it's effectively like rewording the words from Joseph Campbell, why don't you follow your bliss, Cal? And he's like, oh, I have no choice, I can't do that. It's literally the I want moment of the hero's journey.
I caught that when I listened to that on the play of it. I was like, oh man, that's really very closely to the wording that he would have used. That, yeah.
Yes. And so, but the thing about the Force and the thing about these journeys and about these adventures is that you are given no choice. Basically, once those words were said, the Force said, oh, well, Cal, baby, you have no choice now. We are going to make sure that you change. You are no longer going to be stuck. We're forcing you to go on a journey. The thing about Cal is that he parallels Rey so much. He is the same person as Rey from a compassionate and caring perspective. There's these shots where he's literally standing outside of, I took a screenshot of it at one point, but he's standing outside of the fallen Star Destroyer like ship. And it's like Rey at the start when we first see her come out of the Star Destroyer on Jakku. Different planet, but same visual parallel to show you're entering into the ship, she's coming out. Really cool stuff. But from a personality perspective, and from like not knowing where you are and what your purpose is, all of that stuff. Like if you were to write down their characteristics on a piece of paper, they would match. Their histories are a little different. He is escaping the Jedi Purge and is kind of dealing with a lot of trauma to do with that specifically, but his betrayal is abandonment and not knowing his purpose, and that's very similar to Rey herself.
And keeping in the same place just because of stagnation, basically.
Mm-hmm. I can't leave.
There's something inside me that's always been there that's not awake. Not yet, but it does come awake and you have to deal with it. They both go through that. They both find a little droid that holds the key to rebuilding the Jedi Order.
Yep. And finding a lost mentor that has all of the information.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Going to like a Force planet that has a place called a hermit's abode. I only was writing these down at the very beginning, but I was just like, wow, that's a lot. I think that most people have caught, even like people who don't really
Think
see
about things this way. Yeah. Yeah. I
it's
have caught it.
I think that they must have done it that deliberately obvious for a very specific reason. I think they, I guess video games. This was probably in the same amount of development as that many years. So maybe it is not related to trying to change perceptions of the sequel trilogy or anything. But
well, no. So I don't think that they care.
I think you're right.
I don't think that they care, but I think that it's actually in service of the story, and it's more about repeating the motif,
right?
So you get the point. So if Star Wars for you is video games,
exactly,
how can I tell you the same story so you get the point from a repetitive story perspective, so that if you catch on, or if you watch anything else, related to Star Wars, you feel the same theme motif happening. It repeats in your mind, and that's how we learn, right? So why do songs get stuck in our heads? Well, songs get stuck in our heads when they have repetitive lyrics, because they create connections, and repetition builds brain connections and feels more satisfying when we see it again.
Yes.
Right. So I think it's more about just smart storytelling than necessarily trying to make things easier and repeat it for a different audience. I have a whole theory related to media and why it's so obvious in Jedi Fallen Order and less obvious in other media.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me about this theory, I think, when we were not recording last time.
Yeah. So it has to do with how we consume media. I'll get to that probably after The Rise of Skywalker, once I know what the whole story is. But we consume media from how we get the core messaging out of it differently, depending on how much of our brain needs to be active to understand that media.
Right. So your brain is more active when you're reading a book rather than an interactive three-dimensional.
So the themes can be more buried underneath the story, whereas in a three-dimensional VR, the themes almost need to be smacking you in the face.
Right.
Which they do. We've seen that play out.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is not me speaking. This is actually Marshall McLuhan speaking, who was a media philosopher. So there's a lot of people quote him, and a lot of people believe in how he theorized around why media works the way it is. The medium is the message. That was his big statement. And so what is being said from this video game is that they wanted us to walk the core themes of Star Wars and experience what Cal is feeling and experiencing. And that's why in some ways, like, some of the experiences that he goes through are very visceral, and like women who are incredibly, like, have high EQs that I know have been incredibly affected by what Cal has been going through, because it's a very visceral experience. Like, back to the episode where I talk about theater of war and trauma, it's exactly all of that. It is very visceral to experience what Cal is experiencing. So you are off on your adventure, i.e., because you were compassionate and you saved your friend's life, who ends up dying anyways, and you end up getting rescued by this former Jedi named Seer. And her name is spelled Cere, but it's pronounced like Seer, like I'm a seer of the truth.
You also, I noticed in your little run through, or like I was looking at your notes, and there was at one point you thought it may have been a reference to Ceres, the goddess.
Yeah.
Did you not think that afterward?
I
have some.
I play with some stuff.
I think that's not I don't think that that's far off from what I was researching about it.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember in the flashbacks what her hair looked like? It was this beautiful, she had these beautiful, thick, flowing hair that went all the way down her back. And in her hair was like these jewels, like beautiful, bright stones. And in the future, her hair is short. And Demeter in myth, who is Ceres, like that's the same name of the deity. She actually had a crown of ears of corn and beautiful long hair, and she is an individual worried about her daughter Persephone carried off into the underworld. She searches everywhere for her, and caused the earth herself to remain barren of crops until her daughter is restored to her. In the role of mother searching for her daughter, she holds aloft a torch, sometimes two. So it could not be that, but it could have some element of that. I think it's not super big reach. I think
they're not above doing that and having multiple parallels exist through the same character,
because it's a gender reversed parallel, so it's like, almost helps a little bit. I don't know.
But in the end, when you interact with Seer, you find out that she has cut herself off from the Force, just like Luke has. She had an apprentice who ended up going to the dark side.
Oh yeah, she is a much stronger parallel with Luke. I was just mentioning the first part. Sorry.
No. I just agree that there can be, like, there's this thing that will drive you crazy, is that there could be in-universe parallels and there could be out-of-universe parallels, and then they could be, like, in some ways just kind of overlapping to create, okay, what is the full picture of this character that they're trying to tell us? But more through the course of the storytelling, you hear all about how, she's basically depressed. She actually had a full dark moment where she actually pulled on the dark side of the Force herself. And there was a betrayal of a second sister who turned to the dark side. And we'll get into that character in a moment, who was her former apprentice. And by hiding away, that was her way, and cutting herself from the Force, that was her way of almost trying to have penance for that action. But we don't really learn the truth until later on, when it comes out through the second sister character in discussions with Cal.
Oh, it has the exact same pacing as The Last Jedi, down to the, like, exact amount of times that there were lies and the degree of lies and everything that went on with that.
Like the Rashomon style storytelling too,
exactly.
Where it's like my perspective, your perspective, and then the perspective in the middle happens too.
Exactly it.
So you end up going to this, like, homeworld of what are called the Zepho, and they are this ancient civilization of Force users that traveled and basically seeded the galaxy, kind of with these temples, long before the current reign of Force users and story and conflict happened. And the iconography for the Zepho is very Egyptian in orientation. They even have, like, their own language that looks like hieroglyphics, and the wall images of the people, the Zepho, look like Egyptian, like they're kind of turned to the side and they're holding things, and it's very, very similar. But the old mentor Cordova basically traveled the path of the Zepho during the Clone Wars, because he was given a vision of the purge that was going to happen. And so his goal was to find a way to understand the Zepho and what the Force meant for everybody, but ended up basically hiding the holocron of kids, the kids cube, which we've seen versions of this throughout storytelling before, like basically the concept that there's a list of Force sensitive children from around the galaxy that the Empire or the bad people, Darth Sidious, wants. Like, there's a desire to find these Force kids. I don't know that we know why yet.
That's true. what's really funny about, or kind of funny to me about that, is this happens after the Vader comics, right?
Yeah.
And in those comics, there's a storyline where Vader himself has in his hand a list of Force-sensitive children, and he destroys it rather than give it to Palpatine. So, but for it's implied it's for selfish reasons, like he doesn't want Palpatine to get another apprentice as good as him.
Mhm.
I think it was to parallel that, like, when he protected his son, his remaining goodness is to, well, okay, not quite the same, but there was some element of that. Okay, never mind. I actually don't think that. Wait.
I think he knows deep down inside that what Palpatine would do with the children.
Right. Like the Lando.
Yeah. I also, this is okay. The wild, crazy tinfoil tiara is coming out.
Okay.
All right. If we are to view this as reverse Amidala, what if Palpatine is looking for reborn Padme? And this is the subtle way to protect her.
Huh. It like she's on the list or something?
Well, like she's going to be reborn as a Force sensitive. I don't know that we don't know that she didn't have the Force, because it's been hinted at that she does, and that the Force is strong with her, but that she doesn't realize it. It's very much like, Shiva's soulmate, and how she's reborn as the goddess, but she was powerful before, but didn't realize she was powerful before.
Huh. I wonder which comes first, Jedi Fallen Order or Vader Immortal, I guess.
This is 5 years after Revenge of the Sith.
Okay. And we don't know when Vader Immortal really happens.
Vader Immortal happens.
I bet they know.
It's later. I think it's after. There's another VR game that came out, and I think it's like 3 or 4 years before Rogue One.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then interesting. I'm not sure. I don't know how. I feel like that might give Palpatine too much like knowledge of the Force. I feel like or maybe he does have.
He's blind to love. That's the only thing he's blind to. Proven in canon. That is the only thing he doesn't know.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Because when Vader comes to the Death Star and is like, my son is on the planet, he's like, are you sure? I didn't see him.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, yeah. He's like, I'm puzzled. I don't understand this.
Like, are your feelings on this clear, dude? He's like, yeah, they're clear. What's your problem? I didn't see anything.
It's like how Snoke was stupid in the same way. That's funny. They just can't see it. That's funny. So are you guys that's funny. He's like, he doesn't really understand their relationship.
I don't know yet. That's just my
interesting.
Wouldn't that be cool?
It's funny because he had that list and he destroyed it before. So this game where they're trying to desperately keep this list away from Darth Vader, it's like, wouldn't he just take it and destroy it again? It was kind of funny to me.
That's an interesting question.
this I don't know, but they don't know that, so it's still
he wants
a concern.
The list.
Yeah, maybe he would have used it. Maybe he would have used it.
He wants the list in the end. Yeah.
Maybe he could have. Maybe he would have done an even worse decision that time. Who knows? He's
constantly reliving his own trauma and making mistakes again and again, just like the galaxy. Yeah. So you get this mission through the droid BD, who has no memories of the experiences that they've had in the past, and likewise and BD is almost like your droid counterpart, your droid reflection, similar to how R2D2 and C3PO almost fill that role for certain characters within the story. BD reflects back aspects of yourself, and actually on the back panel of BD, as you get wounded or as you get hurt, etc., it actually shows you, oh, you're green, you're yellow, you're red. Like, it shows you that you're hurting and that you actually need to be saved.
Oh, so man,
BD is interconnected to you, and as you are going on this journey to restore your memories of and work through your internal trauma. And there's tons of labyrinth and maze and circular patterns going in towards the center throughout the whole game. As you are working through the trauma of the past, BD starts to remember more and more of the story of Cordova and what is the important piece to remember and maintain, and what is the point. You're learning through the game, what is the point of all this, what is the purpose. Really cool stuff. So you're given this mission from Cordova through BD, and you have choices to go to Dathomir or to go to the Zepho home world, which Zepho, I think it's a tie to Zephyr, the west wind, the gentlest of winds. And part of the planet of Zepho is that you land and it's like there's a constant wind that's circling the planet, except for this one location right in the middle where you land, and you find out the Empire is already there, and these archaeologists are like digging and trying to find artifacts, and they've actually just left, but the Empire is staying there just to be like, no, we own this place, blah. Throughout the course of Zepho, you actually unlock things by like putting balls into circles, which is very like psychological too. Like you're putting puzzle pieces into place in your own mind, and you have these moments where you touch, and you have psychometry, where you touch objects and you experience the memories from that object, which we have seen now come up multiple times in canon. Specifically, we saw a parallel to it in or we see that power from Quinlan Voss in Dark Disciple.
Oh.
And that story itself is very, very like enemies to lovers. And it was one of the first canon books that came out.
I need to read that one.
You're going to scream at me because they have fade to blacks.
No!
So that's the love story of Quinlan Voss and Ventress.
Right.
Yes.
And we also see that in a Force Collector, I think.
Yeah, Force Collector also has that. So this feeling is being brought back up. Are we going to get this as a discovered Force power for Ben and Rey? So they can experience, because Rey has already experienced it by touching the lightsaber.
Oh my gosh. That's what happened, huh?
That's what happened.
Do you know, I kind of thought that was like a personal vision for her.
I think that because it's more powerful, but she experienced the lightsaber's past too.
That's very true. Interesting. I was like, there has to be a reason why I didn't put that together. Oh, okay. So like not every single scene was a past memory. So
I think it because there is no difference in the Force. So that's a really important thing, that past and future, there is no difference in the Force.
Yeah, all is one.
Right, all is one. This lightsaber continues to exist, and so it experienced something that, it told you some of the history of what it experienced, and there is no difference.
True. Sorry, I don't know much about this Force power, and I'm wondering.
We don't actually know that much either. We've only basically had it in books at this point, and a little tiny bit in the Clone Wars cartoon with the episode where Quinlan Voss was in it.
I feel like that could be helpful with like maybe a talking or a dark object that has been talking to a young boy or something like that.
You mean like a mask?
I don't know.
Is she going to touch it?
I don't know.
I think she's going to touch it.
She?
Yeah, she's in the room with it.
Well, so is he in that one?
Yeah, and then they decide to destroy it.
No, earlier than that. There's the scene where he's looking down and like the smoke is coming out, and he's like,
oh yeah, like he pulls it out. Yeah.
So he has apparently an earlier scene with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe we could get some kind of clarification before they start to destroy it. Could be.
Maybe.
And it seems like they share all their Force powers, so I would not be surprised that he also could do that.
I think we might get some sort of vision in that scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or something.
So throughout the course of the game, he touches these different things, and that's actually how you kind of learn like what's going on and more about the story. And it actually like collects these like little like, hey, this is what this is about, and like this is BD scan stuff, and then you touch stuff to understand more about what's going on. So it's not only BD scanning and telling you about things, but it's also you touching things and feeling the emotion behind them.
That's a more elegant way to do it than you have to do it in other video games, which is like you find a letter written by someone who was about to die, and it's like just really hack and like you're like that would never happen. What is this journal from this peasant?
Yeah, it's like strong emotions are left
Yeah,
on these things, and that's how
exactly.
you know what's happening. It's just really well done.
It's
And
better.
so like you're walking this path, you unlock this temple, it tells you more about where you need to go. It helps you cleanse Zepho because it unleashes this wind power that allows you to basically get rid of the Imperials in the location.
Was that the one where they were there for Project Augur, or is that a different planet?
I think that was Project Augur.
And Augur means to foretell the future.
Yes.
I don't know if that has any significance, but I liked that word in the story. It's very mystical.
And again, I'm terrible at video games. So if I missed anything to do with like looking at the walls or whatever, or like, I think I got the point of that. And so then, from that point, you could have gone to Dathomir right off the bat or not, or you could go to Kashyyyk, where there is basically the start of the rebellion. And you actually meet, I'm going to save Dathomir for a little bit, but you have the start of the rebellion, and you have you meet Saw Gerrera, and he's actually wearing his own personal crest on his cape. And to me, his crest looks like halfway point between the rebellion Firebird and the Sith symbol.
Yes, the new Sith symbol that came out recently.
Yeah, like the diamond shaped Sith symbol has been, out there. It looks like a diamond, but with like 2 notches cut out of it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That was a really good catch.
Like it's very symbolic of what is happening for them. And then you basically help them liberate the Wookiees throughout learning more about what's going on, and you enter into the temple and you kind of solve the problems in there. There's also a sort of a question on whether you think that Saw's methods are like good, I think. And it's a really, really, really interesting quandary that you end up kind of being put through. Kind of midpoint, you actually run into Second Sister and you find out more about the relationship between her and Seer, and like the things not told, and she tells you the truth, and it very much reflects the experience of Ben and his relationship with his uncle Luke, and what happened, and the betrayal that happened. And almost, so there's a force field that ends up popping up after you have a confrontation where you're fighting with her, and so you can't actually fight and you're forced to communicate. And the conversation is like a mix between the force bonds and the interrogation scene between Ben and Rey. And when she pulls off her helmet, it's almost exactly like the interrogation scene of TFA. And Trilla, this former Padawan, now Dark Force user, looks exactly like a female Kylo.
Exactly. And there's a certain look that Kylo has that's very specific, like especially in The Force Awakens. He had this kind of like eyeliner almost look, or not eyeliner, but like he had dark smudges and like very, very careful hair. very, very, a very, very, very specific look. And 100% meant to evoke like images of Kylo Ren in your mind, or at least I screamed. I don't know about you. I was like, oh, because we knew going into this is a Kylo Ren parallel. I screamed when she came out because it was so deliberate. Like, we already called that she was a parallel to Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, and it was even more of a clearer parallel than we could have ever imagined. Like we thought it would have been like really subtle and and like
it was very obvious.
We're gonna catch this, but it's obvious to everyone.
I'm wondering if like people, like boys, men, I mean, the walkthrough that I was watching actually had like a voiceover. So somebody was actually talking about what they were experiencing. And they were like, well, we don't kill her now. I guess we'll kill her later. It was like very like odd because I rewatched part of the scenes. And it was just very odd to see men react that way.
Like they wanted to kill her?
They thought that that was the story that they were telling.
Oh my gosh, guys, get some romance in your blood. Just kidding. I know people who immediately were like, oh yeah, okay, I'm into it. Like, I asked people their feelings on Second Sister, and the responses were so beautiful. They were like, I love her.
That's my wife, like they scream. But I think that it's just the video game nature of story, right? And how this actually subverted so many different types of expectations, because you don't hardly kill anyone except for the bad, evil old magician, which we're going to get to.
And a lot of stormtroopers.
A lot of stormtroopers. Yeah, and actually the mechanics, you can cut droids in half, but you cannot cut stormtroopers in half. You can only kill them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, not the killing part, but
I mean, it's just interesting, right?
Can we mention it? Can we mention in this game how humanized the stormtroopers are?
Yes. So I know that like a lot of so you sneak up to people to like get closer to them, and when you're like waiting for the right moment, you actually hear the stormtroopers talk, and like they talk about like everyday stuff. Like at one point, this stormtrooper was talking about how his knees and his back hurt, and the other stormtrooper was like, can you just stop complaining about that? That's so annoying. And I'm wondering like how they got that ADR like to sound so natural. Like, and I know like the one person that was complaining about their knees and their back was like, David W. Collins, is your back okay? Is your knees okay? Like I'm concerned. But like I think that they were like just doing like off take, like what other things could we talk about? And the specific things that are told and used are very, very human, very human. It was very deliberate to make them seem more human.
Possibly leading up to a similar kind of story in The Rise of Skywalker, perhaps, with the stormtroopers becoming individuals again, or perhaps.
I mean, this ties into what we're getting from a resistance perspective with Tam, joining the First Order and, experiencing a very humanistic story in her view. I think it's going to be repetitive of Finn's story, but it's cool. I mean, it's awesome.
Exactly. Yes.
So then you can leave Kashyyyk and you continue on your little merry journey, and all the while you're like having these flashbacks to basically you as a Padawan and learning all about the Force from your master. You knew, but you forgot. Basically, that's the mechanic that they are kind of used. So like how you learn your Force double jump, how you learn push and pull and things like that, and then you can advance your Force abilities and the essence of your Force powers, how you fight with the lightsaber, how you jump, how strong you are with your health, etc., how much Force access you have with your skill points that you learn through killing and discovering things. And you get experience from discovering different key things, which was done very, very well. Then you go to Dathomir. Come to me on Dathomir. And you learn that after the Clone Wars, what happened was a Jedi who was escaping the Purge named Malicos, basically, who looks like Palpatine, convinced the Knight brothers to basically kind of make him the king. And he looks like Palpatine in his like little like robe.
Yes.
And he has created like a cult of personality around him. And Mirren, who is the Knight sister that you end up having kind of conversations with throughout the course of the Dathomirian storyline, was convinced to like work with him, kind of paralleling.
Well, he lied to her.
Right? He lied to her, yes, but paralleling Ben Solo as well. So Second Sister is also paralleling
yes
Ben Solo, and Mirren is also paralleling Ben Solo. And
we could almost say that Mirren is paralleling Ben Solo, and
Second Sister is paralleling Kylo.
Yeah.
There was this amazing tweet thread by Lord Brianna, where they actually kind of deep dive into all of the different parallels, like Sarah being like Luke, and both Mirren and Trilla like oppositely showing both sides of Kylo and Ben, and yet also kind of showing, foils of Ben Solo too.
It's like this incredibly beautiful like character exploration of Ben Solo, like, but very it's like very separated out, and you can get like different aspects and different like facets of it. It's just really nice. I really liked it.
To me, this might indicate that like part of what the truth of what Ben Solo believed to be true was also a lie. We get that repeated with Second Sister's like experiences of the world, but she almost is past caring when it is revealed.
She says he came and promised revenge. That's what she was promised by this liar to her. Like, and that sounds very, very Ben Solo to me.
Yes.
And she's also, it's interesting. So there's these two dark girlfriends.
Yeah.
You have two dark girlfriends in this game. They're both on dead planets, dead worlds. They are stagnant, can't grow. One is on a dead planet and the other is trapped within a dead mask and can't escape it. The darkness. So it's very interesting. And like, it's very interesting who Cal chooses to end up with, or who touches his soul, and
who goes home with him, basically. Yeah.
Who is like,
and we have Dark Union, because Malicos actually offers to Cal to like become, come and rule the Night Brothers with me.
You and me, we could build something different, something better, he says.
Yeah. And, the young coded, like Cal is more sensitive. Cal is coded feminine.
Yes.
And Mirren, as the sort of Prince Knight in shining armor, shows up at the right moment to basically tell him to screw off twice. Twice this happens. Not once, but twice. So a throne room type situation, and there's sort of a weird parallel to Maul as well, like in the offer and in how Malicos looks. And this is before Maul has his conversations with Ezra in Rebels. But it is very interesting that we get this thematic choice again.
Yes. It's also interesting that she is like this woman on this planet mourning the lost dead feminine. I thought that was really, that touched me a lot. Just that purely.
Oh wow. Yes. She also uses dark force magic in a kind of beneficial way. Like the Night Sister magic is feminine and not necessarily bad, even though it's on the dark side.
Right. And another Ben Solo thing, her power comes from her family, her
bloodline.
Yeah. And also her family is all dead, or like her dead family members. It's all kind of interesting.
Yes. There's some wonderfully glorious, pieces to this whole story. Like at one point you end up kind of rescuing a giant bird and pulling a piece of metal out of its wing, and so it flies for you and takes you where you need to go. Like very much a repetition of like, or an example of like the lion and the thorn. You fight walkers, which are very much like David and Goliath. Like there's all this like mythological, larger than life storytelling through all of this. And eventually you end up getting the holocron with the names of the kids on it, and having a final confrontation with Second Sister, who realizes the trauma that she has experienced could be healed You know, it is not too late. And in that moment, the darkness rises and she ends up being killed by Vader in a similar castle to what looks like Vader's, but on water instead of on fire.
This really broke me. I was so sad. I think I caught it better later, but like it just made me so unhappy. I don't like watching these kinds of narratives play out. I think that she kind of had the characterization of the Force Awakens era, like the fandom's conception of what the Force Awakens Kylo Ren was like before The Last Jedi kind of changed the fandom's perception of him. And so she's like colder, crueler, like uses language like is more mocking, and like she's just a wonderful, I love her. she's and to see her barely get the chance to even start to walk back and then it taken is so it was hard for me to watch that.
It's sort of what like a lot of the fandom expected to happen to Kylo, you know, and
it's what they still expect to happen to Kylo. And I think what it's fulfilling is that you kind of always want to see a story play out both ways. You don't you want to be like, but what would have happened if this happened? So we have already seen this version of events where Kylo Ren doesn't choose to come back, and so he doesn't. She dies. She dies, and specifically she dies because Vader kills her. Like it is the influence of the grandfather, the influence of this dark presence. This was the problem all along.
Yeah.
It's very specific how she dies. Like it's not because Rey/Cal kills her.
Nope.
It's because he couldn't overcome the influence of Vader. She could. Sorry, they're the same character in my mind. Like it's hard to describe this character as anything, but I mean, she's so lovely. I love her.
They showed basically both of the potential paths for the outcome and how dissatisfying it is to see second sister Trilla not come back into the light and have that opportunity to grow and change and come to terms with her trauma and her betrayal. And instead, we get a version with Mirren where she accepts and helps you succeed, interrupts the dark, evil old magician's plans, a la Dark Union, and comes away with you on the ship and joins the crew and is with you from that moment on.
Exactly. You get to see it happen both ways, and you get to see clearly how dissatisfying that like angle of story is, because you can like clearly compare the two. They're happening at the same time. Like, which do you actually prefer? Which is the better ending? Like it's a tragic and upsetting story, but it's not a story that will live forever, as it says in the trailer. It's not it's not an eternal living story. I don't know. I think it was so sad to see it, but it was like, okay, you saw it. You saw what that's like. You don't need to see it again. Like this is it. I'm done with this. I don't ever want to see it again. I want everyone to be redeemed from now on. I don't want any sad.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you the problem with death being the only answer too, right? And in the end, we have Seer and the captain, who I can never remember the name of.
Me neither. Sorry.
Yes. And Mirren and Cal all in the ship, and they have the holocron and they're trying to decide what to do with it. And it was like the original goal was to restart the Jedi Order, but instead Cal decides to destroy the holocron and leave the children up to the Force.
That was interesting.
And I don't know what that means.
I always thought that the idea of Jedi and training and stuff was kind of a strange idea in Star Wars when you think about it from a Campbell lens. Like, no, that's not really a part of the hero's journey to have a like mentor tell you the answer. you know. So maybe it's like, I don't know. Everyone finds their own bliss.
Yeah.
I am personally not super invested in the whole, I guess, like I don't know. It could be anything.
Could be. But either way, like Jedi Fallen Order, from a how do you work through trauma, from a story about getting over the horrors of war and how you bear that and continue on. And what I want to say is that everyone that Cal comes in contact with is healed through the course of his journey. Seer, the captain, Mirren, I mean, second sister, although her end is tragic, they're all healed through the course of the story. And he's constantly running into powerful females, which is really, really awesome too. It was a fascinating experience.
One last thing about Marin. There's this really kind of, it didn't almost make sense until I thought about it from a Ben Solo perspective, but that the aspect where she goes to the ship and they don't trust her like a lot for some reason, like they really emphasize that. I'm like, I don't see they needed to emphasize that too much. And then I was like, oh, this is Ben Solo trying to integrate back into society. This is the difficulties he's going to have. So it was quite funny. The whole, I'm a spooky dark force user and I'm going to eat your, I don't know, the way she was teasing the captain. I don't know. I was I hope we get some kind of interaction like that in the Rise of Skywalker. Like, boo, like it's just funny. And then yeah, there's a lot of the whole taking it, this trauma story. There's so many beautiful lines in this game. Like, I know the darkness that's eating you up inside, and every day we choose to either feed it or fight it. You've experienced great suffering. It's not too late to let it go. And like, our mistakes are in the past, and it's all of our responsibility, and it's what we do next that's important.
It's like very much like what we owe to each other, you know, how we're interconnected and how we're all important.
Yes. It's so... I think with the video game that's a little bit longer than a movie, they were able to repeat even themselves. Like, it's never over. We stand here now with a chance to learn, to rebuild from our mistakes. Like, they keep repeating these lines over and over again. It's not too late. We still have a chance. It's every day that you need to make the choice, which is crazy because that's like something I've said almost exactly the same line about describing Luke in The Last Jedi. Like, you have to choose every day. You can't just choose once when you're 20 years old. You have to choose and choose. So yeah, just really beautiful. I think that's all I have about it.
Yeah, I highly recommend this game. Story mode is still difficult, so just be aware. I'm in story mode and it's hard. It is hard for me. I'm not physically very good at video games, but I love having the time, and the game seems to allow me enough time to look at the walls when I get there. So it's taking me forever to actually get through it, but there's beautiful art. This video game is art, and it is psychological. You're constantly having journeys into the unconscious and your subconscious to work through things. Basically, you even end up fighting your old master and killing him, which is fascinating, just like Ben Solo does. You stab him through it, and
it's almost like a part of the hero's journey. It's almost like that's a part of it, and you can't
grow
escape
from it. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? It's just a fabulous game. So in general, what Chelsea and I have seen from the storytelling that has been in the video games, VR, and console/PC games is a repetition of the same messages of Star Wars and the same one story. So this leads us to Tross, and then we'll be able to look at what this all meant truthfully. And I suspect it'll be what we've said all along. This is about love. This is about healing trauma and overcoming the worst aspects of ourselves to reintegrate those and understand those into ourselves.
Life, love, and hope. It's going to be very, very beautiful, and I can't wait for it.
And I feel lucky to have this level of storytelling from Star Wars nowadays.
I feel really silly now because every single time I'm like, it's not going to be like that anymore. Like it's just been a fluke up till now, and now this particular part of the saga won't have those themes. It will be like I distrusted The Mandalorian. I didn't think it was going to be this, and then I I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. I was wrong every single time. I thought Vader Immortal can't possibly be this narrative game that will actually help us understand the story. It will be this just a game where you fight Darth Vader because it's fun to do that in VR. Like instead, we have these beautiful, deep narratives about accepting your family legacy and coming to terms with yourself and overcoming past trauma and
overcoming family trauma and the legacy that you carry that with you until it is dealt with.
Yeah, it comes down to you, and you have to be the one to either take it out of the bag, as Robert Bly would say, or keep it there forever and suffer.
Yep. And pass on that suffering to the next generation. Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It's really wonderful. And I love Star Wars. That's it.
It's continually made me really happy. Like I shouldn't have distrusted it so much, but you kind of have come to not trust like people who write for anything, because it's like, oh, that touched me because they didn't have a plan. But no, they really planned all along to have it all mean the same thing. And I'm really glad that it seems like they're so unafraid in their vision. It's like they don't care about what anyone says about it. That's it. This is Star Wars. It's so unashamed, and I'm really impressed by it.
Yeah. I commented when I interviewed Leland Shee that this was the largest interconnected multimedia franchise that has ever existed. And it is almost unfathomable how successful the story is working.
Yeah, it's like they don't need to invent a whole new, like all they have to do is tell the same story again, and it works so well. It really makes it so much more touching when it all connects to each other. And not just in a, oh, these are the same characters kind of way, but in a deeper, like, these are the same characters in different bodies. This is the same eyes in different people. This is it's good.
It's really good. Star Wars is good.
Star Wars is good, actually.
Yes.
Lucasfilm people, please make a documentary on the writing group and how this was organized and stuff. It would be the most interesting documentary I'd ever watched. Please.
Thank you.
Please, sometime.
Thank you.
We love you.
Yes, we do love you. And thank you for this story and the one story and all the stories. So Chelsea, thanks for joining me with this conversation. I know it was a little tough because you're not like a video gamer, but you consumed the story as best you could, which was super impressive. Do you or let people know, please let people know where they can find you online?
I am at North Gallus on Twitter, and that's pretty much it nowadays. So
yeah, track her down. She has amazing tweet threads and brilliant insights. And I'll link to that in the liner notes. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is orchestral music composed by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force: Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, Susan, Jessica, Cassandra Corvid, Brad, Black-Eyed Lily, Anna Perez, Raylo Musings, and Jawa Dog. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or any of your other pod apps. It helps people find the show. You can connect with us on Twitter at What the Force Show, at What the Force Podcast on Facebook, or on our website, whattheforce.ca. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.